We are not financial advisors, nor are we broker-dealers. Securities used in these videos are examples only. Investing comes with risk. Investing options also has risk. These demo accounts may be used, but they are for training purposes only. Testimonials may be offered. Don't expect the same thing. Remember, we're all here as peers helping peers. This is not professional advice. We're here to help each other. Enjoy.
That was covered and you had questions about, or maybe something else that you'd like to ask. So we're going to open that up in just a minute. But first,
well, he's not here. So.
We have a couple of gifts that we'd like to give to the speakers who joined us today, and this is to all of y'all as special thanks from all of us. We really do appreciate the time that you spent, not just putting together your presentations, but taking the time to travel out here away from your families and everything, or if you brought your family with you. So with that, let's start with Pat Mullally. Pat, just want to say thank you very much. This is a certificate from the Real-Time Trades and Rocky Mountain Moneymakers Group honoring Pat Mullally for your presentation on swing trading and investor psychology.
Adam,
and
could you take a photo?
Get a picture?
Please.
Where is he?
Hang on to it. I'm not letting go. He's golden in here.
Sorry.
Our photographer is saying, say cheese.
Cheese.
Sorry. Since both official photographers are up on stage, it's a little hard, yeah.
Evie, come on in.
Take the picture.
Oh, please. Come here.
There we go.
Come here if you want. Do you want to just come here a second?
Don't move.
Guys, don't need to keep holding hands. I'm scared.
Thank you.
There we go. You get it?
You good?
Did that come out okay, Adam?
Yeah, we can get these on. All right.
That was like one of those old Western pictures where you have to stand there for 5 minutes.
Wow, appreciate it. You guys didn't have to do that. Thank you.
Next we have.
Redneck County tour right here.
Next we have Brett Pattison. Brett, take your applause. You earned it. This is also from all of us to you, with appreciation for your presentation on long-term investment strategies and the one you're about to do online for us. Sweet chicken. Sweet chicken.
Good to see you.
And of course, Matt Hilley. Matt, thank you very much from all of us, especially not just your presentation over the short presentation, but the long one as well. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Shall we give it to
since Chris isn't here yet,
He'll be here by 3.
he'll be here by 3.
Maybe we'll take a second and do that.
If he's not here by 3, just in case, because teenagers are teenagers, then Dad will accept. Okay, before we get started, one last round of applause. Mark. Mark, Gary, Evie, and myself, we did our little bit just to help out. So thanks again.
Thank you.
And with that, let's get started.
Okay, let's get started. So that mic, it will stay on. You are going to take a seat next to Gary. And I am going to be running around with the microphone attached to me and getting onto people who ask questions, who have questions. If nobody has questions, then we're done for the day. Thank you very much. Okay, wait for me to come on over. First hand that I saw coming up.
I have two. First one's for Brett. You mentioned about hedging. You said maybe 20% if you're in a strong bullish market. Do you have kind of a min and a max that you are hedged at all times?
Yeah. Is this on? Hi. 25 to 30%. So 25 would be on the smaller side, but I don't look. It's hard for me to know,
Right.
so that I just shoot between 25 and 30% because a strong bullish market. I can't. I don't want to say I can't define it, but it's hard within the time frame of a covered call to know if a strong bullish market is going to occur. You can go a little further out, which would be at 25%, but I just like to keep it simple. Always shoot between 25 and 30 and not get caught up into the defining of different areas. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Pat, one of my favorite comments of the conference was when you said you are your own holy grail, which was amazing because we're always looking for that and it's always in ourselves. And psychology is something we always kind of work on. Do you have your own favorite reference, and anyone can answer this, but a favorite book or a favorite type of service that you use to improve ourselves psychologically?
Besides Bob Kernan? Well, the university psych ward, but I do visit them from time to time. Favorite books, there's tons, but there's a long list of books. That that you should read, and they're not about entry and exit. They're about crowd behavior. They're about personal behavior. So there's a book called The Crowds, and I can't even think of who the author was. It's an old book. There's a book about a great one about risk, and that is Against the Gods by a guy named Bernstein, who just recently died. He's a great book, Against the Gods, the story of risk. He's got a great one on gold, too. Let's see, of course, the Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. Read that book, read it 2 or 3 times, mark it up, and you'll start getting you'll suddenly start thinking like, hey, wait a minute, I've heard this before, right? It's how people have traded for years. So there's a lot of different books, not so much about entry and exit, but about yourself. And any psychology book, any behavioral finance book, just look up the term behavioral finance, and you'll find lots of good stuff. But always, every time you read it, always think about how does that relate to the market, and you'll be fine.
Thank you very much. Next question, Janice.
I have 2 for Matt. One, you mentioned doing 5 trades a day, every day. Now, I'm assuming that's from just a core 30 stocks?
No.
40, so
Yeah,
whatever?
if you have a tiny little watch list of 100. No, the idea...
That would be tidy.
The idea is to try and trade, right? And as a matter of fact, there was a group of us just talking about this in the back. If you can, I don't care how good the setups are, because at some point, you're going to be in a stock that isn't going the way you want. So if you have a lousy entry, well, at some point, that's going to look an awful lot like something that had a great entry and no longer is great. So enter a bunch of things, as we were talking in the back, in one account, put all of your practice bull trades. In a different account, put all your practice bear trades. Before you look at those, you're going to look at the market and say, oh, guess what? The last 7 weeks we've been going bull. The last 2 years we've been going bull. The last 3 weeks we've been going bearish, or the last week and a half. Now put that hat on and you go into your bearish trades and you just start managing all those bearish trades. Then you look into the bullish account, and you start managing all of those, knowing that we're in a long-term bull and a short-term pullback. If you're thinking that we're in a long-term bull area, but you've got a week and a half downtrend, then you're going to think of that as a flag. So you're going to manage this as if it's a flag, right? If it's a bear trade and you know that the long-term trend has been upward, now you're going to think of this as, hey, this is a reversal that's going to help me for a little bit, right? It's not a bull flag. So I don't care what your tickers are. You can do alphabetical. Start with A, AA, AAUKY. I mean, it doesn't, ABB, whatever it is. The idea is to just get a bunch of trades. Now, it's nice if they're going to be, it's nice if it's going to be tickers that you're going to also trade, but I would actively separate practicing from thinking of these as my real trades, because you're going to behave differently. Your goal here is to stare at this and learn, right? Then you want to manage that learning process and apply that process to your real trades. But if you don't have lots and lots of trades, you're never going to get really good at that management. And I can guarantee, no matter how great your entries are, at some point you're going to have some ticker, oddly enough, that goes against you. And it will look like that, hey, I got into AAUKY someday. I don't know how the heck that happened, but I'm in it. It looked just like that a few months ago, right? And so that's the whole idea is they're not going to be perfect, and they don't have to be perfect, and you will learn more if they're not perfect.
Okay, I have one more question. You did an example at the end. It was with 5% of the portfolio. Do you remember that?
No.
So we were discussing it last night. And
Over too much alcohol.
yeah, so I'm having a hard time remembering.
I only had one.
But the question that we were wondering last night was that you did one trade with $5,000, and that was also 5% of the portfolio.
That was me. I'll stand up and answer the question.
We look so much alike.
Oh.
Yeah, no, that was the IRA.
Mark disagrees.
You know what? We're going to let Janice compose her thoughts, and I'll come back to her. Did you get it? IYR.
Oh, 5% of the portfolio. And okay, for that. Okay, so IYR, yes. Okay.
Was that considered? I mean, it was 5% of the portfolio. It was also $5,000. And so we were wondering, were you saying that that's the only one trade we can do because it was already 5%?
So that's, okay, so if we go back to what we were trying to do yesterday is, how do I manage, if I wanted to have just a few tickers to manage a large portfolio, and I don't care if, maybe you think of $500,000 as huge, maybe you think of it as tiny. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. But if you had only the time, the inclination to manage less than 10 tickers, then IYR, being an ETF, is actually a huge number of stocks. It's not as large as SPY or ACWI, but you don't have to follow the allocation rule of 1 or 2% because it's already diversified. Brett talked about that yesterday, that the SPY can be a huge percentage. So that was the reason that we had 5% in IYR, is that it happens to be a large or an ETF representative of a large amount. We had it as 5% of that account because I was trying to put 5% into real estate. So if we had, according to a lot of investment advisors, retail investment advisors, 5% in real estate is a norm today. And so we picked IYR instead of having to pick 8 different tickers, to get to that 5%. That's all that was. And it just so happened I used round numbers because I can do math based on 100 a lot easier than if it was a $72,000 account. That's all.
Okay, we have a question here from Steve Zoller.
This is a question for Brett. Back when you used to teach the Friday capstone, I thought you had terrific perspective about how to set stops on these trend trading, long-term trend trading positions. And I know a lot of us like to put stops a lot tighter than where you used to teach doing them. And I was wondering if you could give us some perspective or refresher about how you think about that.
Yeah, I'll share with you how I think about it, and then I'll write that down to have that as a conversation point in the webinar. Is that okay?